4 of them are assistant professors, 2 professors, and 1 associate professor. And the question, the familiarity with the TBL, and you can see the 4 of the respondents have already conducted TBL sessions. 1 is familiar with TBL session, and 2 say they are not familiar with TBL. So this means that my task is to address the concerns and needs from novice to the expert. So the range of points to be mentioned in discussion. Coming to problem-based learning, 5 of the respondents, they have conducted TBL sessions, so they have quite good experience in that. 1 is familiar and other is not familiar. So again, the scope of the session would range from novice to expert. So, and that's what I will try to achieve in this session. Coming to the learning outcomes based on the survey results. First, the participants would be able to explain the underlying principles of TBL approach in teaching learning sessions, describe the process of conduct of a TBL session, describe the process of conduct of a PBL session, compare the conduct of TBL session with a PBL session, and conduct a TBL and PBL sessions effectively and efficiently. And we will try to achieve these learning outcomes in this session. Now let's start with the team-based learning first. What's the concept? And this is the statement which clearly gives the idea what TBL is all about. Classroom time needs to be used for solving problems and not just transmittal of information. So this is exactly sort of opposite what we have been doing in the traditional curriculum. Now the classroom is not meant for transmission of information, but for solving problems. This means that the students should be familiar with the information required before coming to the classroom so that they can solve the problems. So that is the first principle of team-based learning. Second, let's go through this concept of zone of proximal development and scaffolding. It is again a very fundamental principle here, and this concept was introduced by this Russian psychologist Vygotsky. Now here we see the 3 circles here, and this can apply to any topic we want to teach our students. First, we can divide this topic into, let's say, 3 areas. One can be very easy part, and many students may be familiar with that already. Second is what we call the zone of proximal development, and this is the area where students really need help in terms of knowledge and in terms of usage of technology and tools. And third, maybe the area which is beyond their reach at that particular moment. Now, if we look at this, so the first one, what I can learn on my own, this is the students which they know or they can learn their own, and we do not need to spend a lot of time on this because this might be boring for the students as well. So the second part is zone of proximal development is really the area where students need our help and guidance to learn that part. Right? So we need to concentrate on this part. The associated concept of scaffolding here is that it's a process in which teachers demonstrate or model how to solve a problem and then step back and offering support as needed. Important point here is offering support as needed. So once giving demonstration to the students or giving the information and then giving them a problem to solve and let them solve the problem themselves, we help only where it is needed. Otherwise and that is what is meant by scaffolding, means helping the students whenever they need it. Otherwise we let them go through the problem themselves. And the theory is that when students are given the support they need while learning something new, they stand a better chance of using that knowledge independently. The second important point about scaffolding is that it is a variety of instructional techniques, means there can be many methods to help students, to move students progressively towards stronger understanding and ultimately greater independence in learning process. Means that the purpose is to train students and enable them to handle the situations independently. So these are 3 important points which would help us to understand the concept of team-based learning. Team-based learning is an active learning, a small group instructional strategy that provides students with opportunities to learn a concept and apply the newly learned conceptual knowledge through a sequence of activities that include individual work, group teamwork, and immediate feedback. So this is actually an operational definition of TBL, that how TBL is conducted. We can break down this into small portions. First, it is an active learning process. Second, it is a small group instructional strategy. Third, it provides students the opportunities to learn a new concept and at the same time, soon after learning, apply the newly learned conceptual knowledge through a sequence of activities, which we will go through that, what activities are included in TBL, so that we can see the students' ability to apply the knowledge what they have learned recently. So TBL is specifically characterized by 3 components. The 3 components, important components of team-based learning. First one, individual advanced student preparation. So students have to make some preparation before the session. Individual and group readiness assurance test, which we call IRAT and GRAT. And third, the team decision making and application of knowledge, RTF. So I will explain all these 3 steps, but at the moment, the first, students have to make a preparation for the session. Second, they have to go through both as individual and as a group to assess their readiness, whether they have learned what they need to learn, and third, to see whether they can apply what they have learned. So 3 specific characteristic steps. This diagram emphasizes the same concept. Phase 1, where there is a pre-class individual study. Then phase 2, where there is an individual readiness assurance test, group readiness assurance test, and mainly the explanation by the instructor or the facilitator. And third is the assessment of application. And this is mainly based on the student's activity, the team application exercise. The sequence of activities in a TBL session, we can enumerate them. First, advanced assignment for the students. So they have to prepare and read and go through the material given to them. whereas for staff, they have to prepare two sets of questions. If we use the Bloom's taxonomy, the cognitive levels, the first set is mainly to assess the comprehension of the students, and second set of questions to assess the ability to apply or analyze or evaluate. So two sets of questions which need to be prepared by the lecturers. Step 2 is identification of small groups and group leaders. Step 3 is individual readiness assurance test, where we use the set 1 of the questions prepared earlier. Step 4 is group readiness assurance test. Again, the same set of questions is used. In step 3, it was on individually using the or answering, and step 4, where the same questions are being answered by the group. And then step 5, that we display the results of set 1 of a group, not of an individual. And here, after displaying these results, the teacher or facilitator explains or clarifies the question which were used in group assurance test. That is the step 1. And then next step, the step 7, is the team application set. Now here is the second set of questions is used, and the group or teams, they answer these questions by consensus, and then their result is displayed, and then discussion on the team application answers. Then there is a wrap-up session, and then is the debriefing, and 12 is appealing. So these are the 12 steps which we go through in our team-based learning session. I will try to explain each step briefly. The step 1, which is advanced assignment and preparation, students receive a list of learning activities. For example, the topic along with learning outcome. That's important. We simply don't give them a topic to read or a video to watch or whatever, but we must give the learning outcomes. Means students should know what is expected out of them while they are going through this assignment. And learning activities, which may include readings, watching videos, lab work, tutorials, or even some previous set of lectures, can be used as the learning activities. The students study the material in preparation for the team-based learning session, whereas staff, as I mentioned earlier, the facilitator, he or she need to plan and organize the session. They have to construct two sets of questions, valid and reliable. Again, very important how we prepare these questions. The first set of questions at C2 level or cognitive 2 level of Bloom's taxonomy, which is based on the comprehension, and second set based on the application, analysis, and evaluation. What I do mostly in my sessions is that I prepare between 10 and 20 single best answer questions for the first set, and 3 to 5 extended magic questions for the team application level. Also prepare tables for entering the students' answers along with model answers, both for group readiness assurance test and team application. This is one example of a table where we can enter the students' results. There you can see the questions numbers, the model answers given here, and here we can enter the results of the teams, whether it is a group readiness assurance test or team application test. But this is just one way. There are many other ways of going through this step.
ऑलमोस्ट $1,000 या फिर 1.5 लाख रुपए से भी ज्यादा सिर्फ एक राइट.
Now, second, identification of small groups. So important here is that we do not allow students to choose their own groups. We prefer to make these groups ourselves, because then we want to have a good mix of students, high achievers, low achievers, diverse, female, and the ethnic groups, and make the group process transparent. So students should not have complaints why they were assigned to a certain group. So example like top 5, bottom 5 mix, or gender mix, race mix, discipline mix. And then we can maintain this group for a term or a semester. So we don't need to make these groups for every session, because we need to develop group dynamics as well. So one group can be maintained for a term or a semester. And let students choose their representative leader or spokesperson, and this can be different students for different sessions. Step 3, the individual readiness assurance test. So each individual student completes the set of questions of the set 1, which I said I generally use the single best answer question. And these questions focus on the understanding of concepts they need to master in order to be able to solve the team application test TMQs properly. Basically, these DAQs are meant to prepare the students so that they can attempt the team application, which is extended magic questions in this example, in the next step. So once the students have gone through this individual readiness assurance test, and their answers can be collected, and these answers may be used for continuous assessment purpose if the institution decides to do that. The step 4, which is the group readiness assurance test, and it is the same set of questions which the students have answered individually. Now they have to answer as a group, and the group must answer them through a consensus building discussion, and this is the opportunity for peer learning, where students learn from each other and discuss and come to a common answer. So once they have done that, we fill the answers in the table for each group and compare with our model answer, the table as I have shown you earlier, and that can be projected. And then is that there are, as I said, apart from table, there are many other methods. Show the card method, or scratch cards, or the audience response system, which are clickers, which the handphones can use that. Although the problem in this is that we would not be able to trace the respondent. So here is the example. Now the students' answers have been filled in. The model answers are here, and these are the questions, and these are the groups. So this is how it looks like. The step 6 is now students are given clarification by the lecturer. Now this is important here. This step is mainly done by the facilitator or the lecturer, with the minimal involvement of the students, because we want to save time here for the next important step. So both right and wrong answers are discussed, why right answer is right and why wrong answers are wrong, and answering any queries by the students by the lecturer. Now, at the end of the clarification review, students would feel confident that they are adequately prepared to solve more complex problems. So this is to prepare them for team application test. And that is the step 7. So, and this is the most important step. Students in teams are presented with a scenario of EMQs that is similar to the type of problem they will be grappling with during their career. So here is, now we believe that students have learned the concept in up to step 6, and now they should be in a position to apply their knowledge to handle or solve these problems which are being presented at this stage. The team application structure follows what we call is 4 S's principle. Number 1, it has to be a significant problem. The question must address important, significant, and common problems. The selected problem and the associated questions must be important, authentic, and realistic. And it should be the same problem for all the teams. The same questions are being handled by all the teams, and it has to be a specific choice, probing the why of the concept, or use of a set of data for interpretation. And 4th S is simultaneous report. So teams report their answers at the same time. So they cannot copy from each other, and this makes teams accountable for reaching and being prepared to defend their decision. Students are challenged at this stage, step 7, to make interpretations, calculations, predictions, analysis, synthesis of given information, and make a specific choice from a range of options and explain or defend their choice to the class if asked to do so. What important here is they have to make a choice. So they are given options and they have to make a choice. We do not expect them to write essays here. They would not be able to fit into this. It's not an assignment. So that's why I prefer to use extended matching questions. So that is to assess their ability to solve the problems, and at the same time they are given choices to pick up the answer rather than asking them to write an essay. Again, it's the same table. The students, now the team application results are put in the table, and then is the discussion. Now here at this stage, the major role is played by the students and not by the facilitator. If you look at the group readiness assurance test, the major role was being played by the facilitator in the lecture, but not at this stage. Because now we think students have gone through the concept, they have understood the concept, and now we want to see their ability to apply that concept to this particular problem or situation. So here major role is played by the students, and there is not much input by the lecturer except when it is really needed. Both right and wrong answers are discussed by the students among different teams. Answering any queries by students. So if students have any questions, the facilitator would encourage the other students and other teams to address those queries and answers. And of course, their team has to explain the basis of their choice of answer. So then is the step 10, which is the wrap-up session, and here is the lecturer who would summarize the concept and its application. Any doubts there, they would clear it, reinforce the right understanding, and clearly state the take-home message. An important contribution by the facilitator at this stage. The debriefing or feedback is another important step. Feedback to peers within the team, and the feedback on the role of the team in the learning process, and feedback on the whole process, learning experience and own personal role. Generally, this point would be the lecturer would give the feedback on the whole process, and may ask some students to contribute. And then the peer evaluation, where students evaluate their peers. Now, we cannot be doing this for every session. Usually we choose, let's say after every 3-4 sessions, we choose this kind of feedback, where the peer evaluation structured feedback is used. And for example, what is the single most valuable contribution this person makes to your team, and what is the single most important thing this person could do to more effectively. Basically, the purpose is to improve the team collaboration and teamwork. Appeal is another important component, where some students may not agree with the best answer provided by the lecturer, and they may make an appeal, and they can offer an alternate answer to the best answer. The team must either provide a clear and usable rewrite of the question if they think it's a poorly worded. Students may think the question was ambiguous, so they have to give an alternative statement, or they have to justify and explain why they think that the answer they are providing is best or is equally important as has been chosen by the lecturer. Only team that takes the steps to write an appeal is eligible to receive credit for that particular question. So keep the turnaround time as brief as possible. Even the next possible session, the decisions should be announced. So if I want to summarize these events, pre-reading by students, preparation of 2 sets of questions by the teachers, students answer first set of questions individually, students discuss the first set of questions among themselves and answer the questions as a group, students and teacher discuss the first set of questions and answers, students are given second set of questions, students discuss among themselves and answer second set of questions as a group, and second set of questions and answers are discussed among students and the teacher. So this is the summary of the events which take place in one PBL session. So just few tips how we can make these PBL sessions more effective and more practical, especially because we have some participants who are already conducting this PBL session. So first one, explain the answer to the question of readiness assurance test rather than asking the students to do so, because we do not want to spend so much time here so that we can do the next step, especially the team application, more elaborately. So here the lecturer can play a major role rather than asking students to explain their answer. Second tip, monitor the students' discussion carefully. Do not lose the track. Unnecessary lengthy discussion brings boredom, and do not allow the repetition of the same argument, because we want to use the time most productively. Use scenario as real as possible, especially the EMQs. address important questions, not minor print. And do not forget to wrap up the session smartly. That is important because that would be really the take-home message which students need to be very clear about. Select the students randomly to speak. Although there are no students spokesperson, but we can still ask other students to answer. I usually do that. I have the attendance sheet of the students in front of me, and I can pick up different names and ask the students to answer. And the purpose is that it's not only the spokesperson who is ready to answer, but other members are also ready to answer. Make a rule that anyone who speaks to the whole class must stand up or use a microphone. Get in the habit of moving away from the student who is speaking so that he or she will speak louder. Otherwise, students tend to answer to the lecturer and not to their teammates or other students. So inspire them to speak to the other teams, not to you. Go for quality of questions and not quantity. And it would be good practice to discuss those questions with your colleagues if it's not possible to have a proper vetting. You do not need to cover all the content. And they trust the process. If you design questions that really make students think and struggle with making a decision, for sure they would read the whole thing very carefully. So that's the description of the PBL process. Coming to the steps of a PBL session. So as I see from the survey, a majority of the participants, they are already conducting these PBL sessions. So there are some steps before the PBL session is conducted. And first is preparation of a PBL package by a group of academicians. Second step is facilitators go through the PBL package. Third, facilitators meeting. The facilitators need to meet before the PBL session so they can plan the session properly and they have a common understanding on how to conduct the session. Identification of students groups and their facilitators, and allocation of PBL rooms. So these are the 5 steps which are needed before we conduct a PBL session. And then the facilitators, they collect the PBL triggers from the academic office on the day when the PBL is going to be conducted. So steps during the PBL session, students choose a chairperson and a scribe. Facilitator hands over the trigger to the chairperson for distribution to the participants. Scribe notes important discussion points on the board. Chairperson requests a student to read the trigger. Students clarify the text of the problem or clarification of new terms. Students identify and list the fact stated, and students define the problem so that everybody has the similar concept and the same concept about the problem. Then students brainstorm to find explanations for the phenomena or the facts observed in the problem. Students identify the learning needs, that's the gaps in their knowledge, which they would identify while they are trying to the brainstorm and explain the phenomena. Students work independently up. So at this stage, the first session is over, and students then go out and work independently or in a group to achieve the learning needs, and they reconvene at another day to discuss the problem in the light of newly acquired knowledge. Again, there is a debriefing session. Those are the steps of a PBL session. I'll give you a comparison between PBL and the PBL towards the end of this session. First, the challenges which we face during PBL session. The first one is rereading and assignment by the students. So that may be a problem because not everybody may come prepared. But if we use the individual readiness assurance test as a part of continuous assessment, that would be a good stimulus for students to read and be ready before coming in. Preparation of valid and reliable questions for 2 sets is again a challenge for the lecture. As I said, we don't prefer to go for the number, but the quality of the questions. Coping with number of students. Let's say up to 100, 120 students, we can conduct one PBL session. But if the student number is more than that, then you may have to divide them into two groups. And then managing the session, pointing out the hidden students means the students who are keeping quiet, not participating. So encourage them to participate. Similarly, there are some challenges in PBL session. Here we saw the PBL session, now challenges for PBL session. Preparation of PBL package is the challenge of proper PBL session, and that takes a lot of time, and where a number of lecturers from different disciplines need to be involved. Training of facilitators is very important. That plays a very crucial role in PBL, how facilitators conduct the session, especially if there are subject experts and non-experts. Of course, motivation of students to participate and coping with number of students. Obviously, we prefer the group in PBL about 8 to 10 students. So it's the large number of students, so you need to have large number of groups. So means so many staff members being involved. And managing the session, similarly, pointing out the hidden students and participation. Right. So these are the references for this. But let me stop sharing this and share the other document which I want to show you. Sorry. So okay. Yeah, this one. Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay. Now this is the table which I have prepared to compare the PBL and the TBL. And the first is preparation for the session. If you see, there are very major differences between the two approaches. In PBL, no reading material is provided to the students, whereas in TBL, reading materials are provided to the students. In PBL, no learning outcomes are provided to the students. They have to identify their own learning needs, whereas in TBL, the learning outcomes are provided to the students. In PBL, students must come unprepared. They do not know actually what is going to be discussed, whereas in TBL, students come prepared and they know what is going to be discussed. In PBL, faculty need to prepare a PBL package, whereas in TBL, facilitator need to plan the session and prepare 2 sets of questions, as I mentioned earlier. In PBL, facilitators go through the PBL package and may have a discussion with other facilitators about the conduct and content of the session, whereas in TBL, the facilitator may discuss with other colleagues and may accept their suggestion. So this is for the preparation of the session. When it comes to the conduct of the session, in PBL, the group size is 8 to 10, whereas in TBL, it's usually 4 to 6. In PBL, facilitator is not a subject expert, but in TBL, the facilitator has to be the subject expert. That's very important point here. In PBL, one facilitator for each group, so you need manpower here. Based on the number of PBL groups, you may need number of facilitators, whereas in TBL, only one facilitator is needed for all the groups. Similarly, for PBL, multiple PBL rooms are required, whereas TBL is one classroom with roundtable seating required. In PBL, students need to choose a chairperson and a scribe, whereas students in TBL, students need to choose a spokesperson. In PBL, facilitator mainly coordinates the session and gives very little input, whereas in TBL, facilitator coordinates the session as well as gives significant academic input, and that's why the subject expert is needed to facilitate the TBL. Both need active involvement of the students. In PBL, students identify their learning needs, whereas in TBL, learning needs are provided to the students. And in PBL, it requires more than one session, at least 2 sessions. Students need to study in between the session, whereas in TBL, it's only one session, and typically there is no homework. And post-conduct, after the session, both PBL and TBL, they need a debriefing session. PBL feedback given to the students both on individual and group level. Similarly, feedback given mainly to the group level in TBL. And the PBL can be used as part of continuous assessment. Similarly, TBL can also be used as part of continuous assessment. And TBL gives a student an opportunity of appeal where this is not needed in PBL. So I think that's the end of my presentation. And if you have any questions, I will be more than happy to answer. At the same time, a little bit of advertisement. I do conduct these webinars on medical education regularly on monthly basis, which are free for everybody. And the next one is on 11th of December. And the topic is construction and conduct of multi-part MEQ. We have a large group of participants in these webinars. We have more than 2,500 members. And every month we conduct one session. If you are interested, the link is given in the bottom of this slide, and you can join the session if you like. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Prof. Maybe you can WhatsApp me the link so that I can disseminate.
I think I'll share these slides with you so that you can send to all the participants. I'll send you after this.
Thanks, Prof. Thank you.
So, any questions or comments from anybody? Yes,